All right, so this is round two of our talk about the importance of teamwork, because I did not record round one, so we are going to go back over some of the things we said, and then cut into our original conversation when we get into the talk about tools. So the first one is about the importance of communication.
Okay, cool. So communication is very, very important. Make sure that you are trying to talk to your team as much as possible. If you have a phone, which I'm sure probably 105% of you do, make sure that you have Slack downloaded onto your phone. You know, that they have Slack apps for Mac OS or iOS, whatever you want to call it, as well as Android, and probably just about any other type of operating system that you would possibly have for your phone. Anyway, so make sure that you have it so that you can very easily access it. If you can't get to your computer, maybe you've locked yourself out of your office, who knows, but it's a fantastic tool to have readily available, because communication is key in teamwork. And Slack is going to be your main mode of communication in this class. It's probably equivalently important to your Canvas website. So have this up on one screen and Canvas on the other.
Well, that, and with you mentioning that communication is super important. With this project specifically, you could theoretically, do the entire project together on a voice call such as this, but there is gonna have to be some offline work done. And I know my team with David used Slack pretty much constantly to, share what we had going on, get ideas as to, is what we're doing looking right.
Well, sure, yeah. And a lot of us have really, really busy schedules. So getting more than an hour a week or 2 hours a week together can be challenging. But, different members taking time to, prep a little bit of work and then get feedback on that, so it's ready to go, is really important.
Yeah, and Slack, like basically a chat tool like Slack, enables you to, right when you finish something, you can post it into Slack. Maybe it's on your Dropbox, or your Google Drive, whatever. You link it into Slack and you say, hey, take a look at this, and you get immediate feedback. And your teammates can go in, change things, make comments if they don't understand something or they think something should be different. And that's one of the great parts about this class, is that you're going to work together to fully understand all of the concepts. You can master UML with this class, with all of the tools you are given. You have ASTA, you have teammates who are your teammates are some of the best tools you're given, because they are intelligent software engineers, and they're going to be your future coworkers. And in the meantime, they're your peers, they're your colleagues, and they're your friends.
And along with that, during the course of this project, you're going to have individual assignments that you have to complete, and at some level, at least, you might understand the material, but another team member might understand it better or differently and have a different perspective on it. So that collaboration that you'll have as a part of this team is really, really important in deepening your understanding of what's going on week to week.
Right. Everyone can work together to make sure that everyone gets the most out of the class that you can. And it's very important to keep an open mind and to understand that no one is going to fully understand anything on the first go. So you have to be okay with being wrong sometimes. You have to be able to accept constructive criticism. And at the same time, you need to make sure that you're not overly critical. So you have to really develop some soft skills to be a good team member. You have to be able to openly discuss any conflicts that you might have in your class. You also have to be cognition of the personalities that you have, the different dynamics in your group, and make sure that you're not, stepping on toes. So because a team, it's a very unique environment, and software engineers are going to be
Always working on a team.
yes, always working on a team, for sure.
Well, I mean, along with that, it's really important to make sure that you're getting to know each other as more than just people working on the same project, but as people, developing those connections so you can leverage those relationships to either provide feedback that they might be more receptive to, or be more receptive to their feedback. They're not just some anonymous team member. They're someone that you know and trust enough to listen to, and that can be really important in blocking yourself, being willing to put yourself out there and accept criticism, and for them to do the same.
And you'll learn
Yeah,
just how far you should learn to trust somebody.
for sure. It's very important to not be too flexible with your team. Don't let anyone use you as a doormat. And at the same time, don't be too rigid that you are a stick in the mud.
And shut everybody down.
Right, exactly. Because if you start shutting people down, then no one's going to work well together. You have to know how. You've got to find a happy medium of enjoying your work together and also holding one another accountable.
Mm-hmm. And this is a skill, and it's not something that anyone is good at up front, and it's something that you can actively work on and improving, and you'll see a result in your grade. It'll be something that is measurable if you work at it and keep that in your mind.
I think that one thing that kind of sums up a lot of what was just said is to have fun with your teammates, have fun with your project. It's okay to take a 5 or 10 minute break during your video calls to get to know each other, joke around, draw on the screen, play hangman. These are your classmates, and being an online student, we don't get a great chance to interact with each other as you would on campus. So I really enjoyed using these team projects as a way to get to know my fellow classmates and make friends.
Yeah, it's an excellent chance to grow and to network. Add each other on whatever social media you have. Become friends. Talk often. I know most of us are still talking to our 315, our 316 groups.
And same here. I mean, Jacob and I were on the same team in 315 and in 316. And it's, I guess, 2 months after the end of 316, and all 5 of us are still in active communication. We're just really close. And that was only possible because of our experiences as a team on 315 and 316.
Yes, and I'm still talking to my 315 group from last spring, and here it is next spring. So it's been a year, and I'm still in constant conversation with everybody that was on my 315 group, because I had an amazing group, and I was lucky to have that. We had next to no conflicts in that group, which is a rare and lucky experience. And not everyone can be so lucky. And if you're not as lucky, you just have to go with the flow and try to work together and try to understand one another, because really communication is the key to understanding. So communicate often.
Since you mentioned conflicts, our team certainly, we had a few conflicts. I mean, they weren't extremely often, but if you do have conflicts, take a break. You can, walk away from your computer for 30 minutes to an hour, and don't say something you'll regret.
No, that's definitely true.
That can kill a team very quickly.
Yeah, and it'll demotivate your classmates that you might be trying to do the opposite of. You might find yourself trying to help motivate some of your teammates, and who knows what kind of semester they're having, but sometimes it's important to be there for one another, because people are more likely going to work with you and try to help you and try to make an excellent experience overall if you have a pleasant working relationship.
And for all the things you can learn from a near perfect team, there are all sorts of lessons that you can get out of these less than perfect experiences, and learning to make the best of that can be even more valuable. So no matter what you end up with in these things, so you just learn a ton. And it was the first thing that they say they want to simulate an industry environment, and it was the first thing that really pulled everything together, and it's a really satisfying experience.
Well, at the end of the day, you don't really learn a whole lot by succeeding. Succeeding is fantastic. Succeeding feels great, and everyone's really, really happy on the team. But at the same time, failure is a much better teacher. And I'm not recommending fail the course, fail a lot, but
I'm gonna go ahead and say it: fail the course. Fight with your team.
Making mistakes is okay, and there's value in that.
Right.
Absolutely.
They say, isn't it Michael Jordan was told that he would never be a basketball star, and he practiced every day. So part of being great at teamwork or great at anything, if you want to be a great software engineer, you've got to practice. If you want to be great at communicating, you've got to practice. And ASU is giving you excellent opportunities to practice communicating and practice growing as a teammate. You want to be a fantastic teammate, because when you're looking for a job, whether it be an internship or a full-fledged software engineering job, when you're applying, you want to put that you are an excellent teammate, because it is a top sought skill, because you have plenty of people out there that are good at programming, but they might not be as good at communicating or as good at with their soft skills. So soft skills are so important when you're moving into the industry.
Mm-hmm. And being able to say, I'm a great teammate on a list of skills on your LinkedIn and whatnot. Anyone can put that on there, but to have these types of projects and courses is evidence that you have the experience of working in this kind of environment with a team, and that kind of puts something behind it rather than just saying it and hashtag teamwork.
Right, and more on that is also being able to network with your team. So why, just to underline it again, and put, triple score it. Like your teammates are very, very important to you this semester. Make friends. They're going to be an excellent source of networking for you in the future, as each one of us undergraduate teaching assistants have experienced ourselves. Oh yeah, and by the way, with your Slack, make sure that you talk a lot, because NASA's top engineers say that it's much better to communicate too much instead of too little. So always err on the side of overflow of information instead of keeping too much back, because you never know what kind of communication is going to be deemed important.
So for any awkwardness in the transition from this part into our tools discussion, from here, we're going to cut to where we go into the different tools that are good for working with for this class and beyond. Thanks for being good sports about going through that again. Appreciate y'all.
Thank
Yeah,
you
of
for
course,
recording
Ryan.
it. You did
I
record
know.
it this time, right?
Yeah. Ooh.
Oh,
No, gotta do it over, guys.
Just
Ryan,
gonna withdraw from the course.
and then along with that, I believe there's some power-ups that you can integrate with other stuff, like Slack, for instance. You can have it feed Slack updates on, so at 2 o'clock in the morning, someone moved this card into ready for review, and you might not necessarily have been aware of that otherwise. Verbosity can get a little bit crazy, if it's constantly notifying you for small changes. It's a tough balance to make, but it can be really useful.
Well, I believe that it's customizable too. I think we've always had the Trello Slack bot set up for us, but I want to say you can customize it too to make it to where not every little thing gives you a notification.
Well, that was
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
that was what we actually did in 3.15, I believe, rather than going with a separate channel specifically for Trello. Or we might have still done that, but we brought down the verbosity so it didn't, if you made like a typo edit to one of the cards, it didn't automatically send a ping. Whereas moving it into a different column would ping the channel.
I think it does a good job as well of allowing more active people to kind of expose it to people who aren't as much in a good way. You can embed a card into a chat, or you can share a link that'll take them back to the calendar. The same way that you can empower it to do stuff with your calendar, you can also feed it towards other people in a smaller dose if they're not as savvy or interested in being on it all the time.
One thing about Slack that I cannot stress enough about how much I like it is the threads function. When I first started using Slack, I wasn't a huge fan, but when 4, 5 people on a team start getting really chatty, the threads really help sorting for stuff.
Yes. So does the search function. The search function. Sorry. Helps immensely. So, yeah, and I love the screen sharing part. We're using it now. Haha.
No, but I mean, it's really great. Like, team members don't have to download another software program to collaborate face-to-face virtually. They can just, pull up Slack and join the call, and it's already got screen sharing built into it, and different people can screen share at different times. It's really convenient, and that live back and forth discussion can be a lot more valuable than even like a text-based back and forth discussion in the Slack channel can be.
Yeah, it's a lot quicker. And, ASU is backing Slack in such a huge way by implementing them into their coursework. And they implement it for a reason. It's because Slack is such a versatile tool. It has so many plugins, application plugins, and so much potential. And you can also develop for it. So it's also customizable. So Slack is an excellent tool for teamwork and for questions and FAQ and coursework. It's a fabulous tool, and it is not just used by ASU. It's used everywhere.
I think that kind of goes towards something else we have note of as being a less ideal choice as Discord, where it's really popular, but some of these things that just work real well in Slack, like group calls were mentioned, that they don't quite click, and I've had that same problem. Microphone settings and having to befriend everybody before you can get into a video call, but you can do an audio call on the fly. Like just the little quality of life things that you just hit a button on Slack and it goes.
Yeah.
That, and not terribly long ago, I believe Discord implemented some limits on functionality as far as voice and video calls go.
And the Discord servers tend to go down a lot.
They do.
Yes.
And this is somewhat anecdotal, but generally speaking, the quality of the video that you're getting, even if you're able to get 3 or 4 or 5 people together on screen share in Discord, it's just not fine enough to really read some of the fine print on those diagrams.
Well, Slack is great for that.
For sure.
And Slack, you can draw on screens. I don't think you can do that on Discord.
I know. Like, this is the best. GitHub. No one, well, there are, I'm sure, people in this class that are using GitHub. However, we have not gone over it. We'll go over it in 316. But GitHub, a new up-and-coming company, well, not really new, but GitLab has integrated CI functionality as well as kind of a Trello board. So does Azure DevOps. Both are really good, really great tools. But GitLab or GitHub right now is an excellent tool because it's free to use and you can use some other tools for it. So if you're looking for traceability, work traceability, it's a good tool. And if you already know how to use it, it's fine to dive into at this point. However, if you're new to it, I'd highly recommend saving it till 316.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Dropbox, for instance, is another versioning platform that you can use. And it works pretty well for the types of documents that we're working in this course. You've got comment features and you've got, like I said, it does versioning. So you can roll back one of your ASTA files for one of the group diagrams because you decided, well, that this doesn't work the way that we wanted it to.
So, question for your team, since you both were on a team together, did you have your diagrams in the same ASTA file or did you have them in separate ASTA files?
I think we kind of, during the course of between deliverables, we would have them in separate files, and then as we were leading up to our final meeting prior to submitting, we would combine it into our sort of master file.
Yeah, I know.
Which had them all in a single file, just because it helps, make sure we are staying consistent.
Yeah, I know our team made a real mess of things trying to do something similar, or rather trying to glue it all together without having thought of it ahead of time. So I did not have that cohesive experience with our group. Made it a lot harder.
For most of the diagrams, ASTA supports being able to put it all into one file, and it works great. However, I believe for 2 of the diagrams, we had to pull it out into a separate file. And that just has to do with, a difference in those levels of abstractions and how naming is handled for different entities that are modeled in ASTA.
Going back a bit to Discord, that going back in time kind of thing is like the magic of saving a game that you forgot to save and just being able to go back to it. And for that, and for the fact that it's basically expected that you'll have something like that on your resume, a link to your repository with projects that you're working on, I would say that at some level, there is no time that's soon enough to get into it. Just just to do something like, how to use GitHub in 1 hour or something. Just anything to get your feet wet with it is good to do immediately.
Yeah, and at the beginning of that, I know you meant GitHub, not Discord specifically.
Oh, yep.
So yeah,
Definitely didn't mean that one.
Yep, and that's okay. I was just mentioning in case somebody gets confused. So I knew what you were talking about. I would not have corrected you otherwise because that's bad teamwork.
And since you are mentioning GitHub as you need to learn it to prepare yourself for the future. For those who haven't taken 316, getting used to Trello or something similar will somewhat prepare you for the agile that we use in 316. I, for whatever reason, am forgetting the name of the platform we use in 316, but
it's Taiga.
Taiga, that is it.
Yes.
It's pretty similar. It's different UI, but the thought behind it is pretty similar.
Yeah, Trello is a simplified version. Well, if you use it the way that my team used it in 315, we used it. I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, but in a Kanban.
Exactly.
Kanban.
Right. Yes, Kanban. So you'd have a backlog, a to-do list, a in process, a ready for review, and a complete list. And as you move along, you switch them to different sections. It's that Kanban, if you want to do a little bit of extra research, is a fantastic tool to use for something like 315 because it's a great way to keep everybody on the same page without diving into software development like agile methodology or Scrum methodology. Kanban is very simple.
I want to say Kanban is another form of agile methodology.
Mm-hmm.
It is, but it's so simplified that I don't think
it counts.
Yeah.
Well, they totally go head to head. There's it's like ketchup and mustard. They fight each other forever about which one is better. And I think also just to see it again, it broadens your perspective. And like someone mentioned, it kind of gets you in the right mindset for agile. The more you experience it, the more you'll get over some of those early hurdles, and it'll be a smoother transition as you get into the coursework.
Yeah, 100%. Look into Kanban, get like a 10-minute video, put those into Trello, and have fun and learn and ace the class.
And learn from each other. I think that's the most important part.
Yes, that's the most important part because it's learning from each other and being a great teammate because teamwork is, as everybody has said, and I'll iterate again, one of the most important parts about this class. Teamwork is, yes.
So I started recording the audio at a certain point during this call that you may not be super excited about. And
please say it wasn't 30 seconds ago.
It was not 30 seconds ago. It was not 30 minutes ago either, though.